our next speaker is a repeat speaker. This might actually be like a bit of a sequel to last year's talk. And in her previous life, she wanted to be an historian, which is a pretty cool job in itself. But something I discovered about her last year, and I introduced her this way last year, is that she went from being like a closed source expert, like writing books about closed source software, to being this huge open source advocate. And I think that's a really nice journey, going from closed source to open source and embracing this open source community. And the talk today is partly about getting open source into big government. So I am super excited about the speaker, about the journey, about everything. Everyone, please welcome for a second time at these conferences, Wendy.
Thank you for inviting me back. I guess I must have done at least an okay job last year since Jared asked me back for this conference. So I'm very happy to be here to talk to you about my continuing journey as an advocate for using R at a U.S. government agency. And in particular, my goal has been to get approval for us to use R in what we call production. So here's the game plan for my talk today. I'm going to sort of talk about the beginning of the journey. So some of this will be a repeat of what I talked about last year. But then I'm going to let you know where we are today. And I have to say, I at first I was going to say this was my end game, I guess, that I reached the end, but I really haven't reached the end yet, as you'll see at the end of the talk. So a little bit about who I am. Education-wise, I have degrees in various different disciplines. So I have a bachelor's degree. I had a double major in math and physics, went on to become an engineer. And then I got my PhD in computational sciences in informatics, with an emphasis on computational statistics, which if you look back at the curriculum I had, this was back in the mid 90s, was really what we would call today data science. And during a lot of that time, I was also working in the Department of Defense. So I had probably over 25 years in the Defense Department. And then I moved to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is sort of the world of surveys and what they call official statistics. So I kind of have experience in both sides of the government. And I really did start using R when I was working on my PhD. So, I have a lot of experience with R across the federal government. Right now, as I said, I'm working at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is our building. If we weren't working remotely, this is where I would be. This is the Postal Square building. It's right across from Union Station. And that door you see next to the tree is for the Smithsonian Museum, the Postal Museum. So once things open up a bit more, I'd encourage you to go there. It's a beautiful place to visit. So I want to give you a little bit of background about the principal federal statistical agencies, because this has a bearing on the hurdles and things that we've had to overcome in order to use open source software such as R. So there's 13 principal federal statistical agencies, and these encompass a lot of different areas, as you see here. So crime statistics, economics, labor, transportation, demographics, energy, and more. So in the United States, we have a decentralized statistical system, unlike some other countries where it's one national statistical office. So what's key here is that these agencies, we are responsible for producing certain official statistics. In particular, there's what we call principal federal economic indicators. These are what BLS produces. And the three down here at the bottom are some of the ones that we produce. And I'm sure you are familiar with most of, or at least two of these. One is the employment numbers, or the employment situation, that's published every month, as sometimes known as the jobs report. And of course, the consumer price index. So as you could maybe imagine, getting these data published, the statistics out there, is vital, and we have to do it by law. And a lot of people around the world look for these numbers. So a former commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Dr. Erica Groshen, kind of developed this acronym, and I really love it because it describes the heart of what federal statistical agencies are all about. And I want to talk about this a bit here because at least 3 of these I think are relevant, or I guess I should say what we use for software or our IT is really critical to make sure we achieve these priorities. And first of all, we have to get it right. What we produce has to be accurate. Also timely. We have to, what we use in terms of IT has to be stable, because we can't afford for things to fall apart, and then we have to tell the public, sorry, we can't publish the jobs report because something happened with our software. And it has to be accessible. So this has to do with how do we disseminate, visualize, what have you, the data and the statistics that we publish. Now a little bit about the rocky road. And this is the rocky road to getting R approved for production at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As I said, I started at the BLS about 10 years ago. And when I got to BLS, R was being used by a small group of people, mostly for research purposes. But when I got to BLS, I soon became an advocate for R, and in particular, using R to be sort of innovative, to develop innovative applications and approaches, and then use those in producing our statistics and our data. Now, at BLS, we do have a system that allows us to request that we be able to install software for the purposes of either research or production. And so at one point when I first got to BLS, I started going through the kind of the wickets or the process to get it approved for production. And you can see this this graphic right here. My co-author Brandon Kopp went back through our approval system and looked at the approval history for R starting in 2015, which is kind of when I started this whole process. Now the blue bars are approvals for research purposes. The green bars were approvals for production. So you can see right from the beginning here in 2015 or so, it was approved for production. And then all of a sudden somebody said in our IT, oh wait, that's not good. We have to take that back, and you can only use it for research. Then again, production, no, and then just research purposes. So what's just kind of interesting to me here is it's sort of an indication of this kind of circular road for getting R approved for production that I've gone through over the years. And this was a graphic that I showed in my talk last year, so it hasn't been updated yet. So why should we use R at the Bureau of Labor Statistics or in the federal government? Well, first of all, the cost. Then there's the fact that when somebody, say a researcher, develops a new methodology, oftentimes they write an R package or something, or functions to implement that methodology, and so that is available right away for researchers, say at BLS, to use in producing what we do at BLS, which is, and then often that type of functionality is sometimes not ever available in commercial software. But in any case, it takes a long time for it to be implemented in, say, something like SAS. We've also faced with hiring people right out of school, and usually in their universities, they don't learn SAS, but they might oftentimes they learn R or say Python or something else. So they come to BLS and they're told, oh, you can't use what you used in school, you have to go and learn something like SAS, which doesn't have maybe the functionality that you need. So this leads to issues with employee retention. So we've hired data scientists. They come in, they're all excited, and then they're told, oh, you can't use R or Python, you have to use, again, something like SAS or some other software. So they get kind of frustrated and they leave. And of course, we ask them to be, we want them there so that they could be innovative and, kind of help us modernize. And in order to do that, we really need to have the use of these tools. So what were some of the issues that our IT and upper management brought up when we were trying to get R approved for production use? Always there's the issue of security and protecting data. There was a confusion about what does it actually mean to use R or anything really for production. And as I said, we have researchers who are using R to develop new and innovative methods. And so our researchers need to have the ability to kind of install packages as they want to and as they need to. And so that kind of made our IT folks uncomfortable because sometimes, you write something that uses a previous version of R or a package, and then there's updates and then things get broken. So there has to be some stability. This is the government. They do like to have commercial support. They want to be able to call a help desk and get some help fixing something. Remember, I said one of those priorities was we have to be timely. We can't be late producing our statistics. So, we have to be able to get help when we need it. And then one thing so remember, it's the researchers, not the IT people who are developing these new methods. They're the ones kind of being innovative. And so what happens is the IT folks, they say, well, what happens when the developer, the innovator leaves the Bureau? Who is going to take care of that? Who's going to maintain that app or that package? So what I always push back there is say, well, you have programmers in the IT department who they don't stay there forever, maintaining the same program. So there has to be ways to kind of mitigate that risk. So where are we now in this journey? I really like this little road sign up here because I think it kind of exemplifies what I've gone through over these past many years, and kind of twists and turns and detours and circles and kind of 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But we have made some progress that I'm happy to report. So we were actually ready to in 2018, late 2018, we were ready to get approval from our executives to use R for production. We had a way to govern the use of R, and they pushed back and said, well, we want to have a process to approve any software for production, so not just R. So things like, MATLAB or Python or some commercial or open source, any kind of software. So a team worked on an application process. In 2019, December 2019, we presented it to our executives, and that was an epic failure. They kind of hated it. There was a lot of misunderstandings about where we were coming from. And so early 2020, I was ready to just throw in the towel. I had just kind of lost, I guess, motivation or something. But fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and our deputy commissioner came to me and said, well, I think we should have a smaller group to take your process and fill it out as if you were going to get R approved for production. So we did that, and we had some good support, and it was a smaller group, which I think really helped. So we, instead of going back to the executives and saying, okay, here's our application for R, we said, let's form a little smaller group where the members have sort of the authority, the decision-making authority to approve R for production. And so that's what we did. And as of last year in December, when I spoke at this conference, we didn't have a decision yet. So it was still, up in the air. But I'm happy to report since then, it's now approved. So this is a picture kind of, I guess, my inner child. I'm at the top of the rocky stairs, and I've got my arms up in victory saying, yes, it is approved. So I'm happy to say that R is officially approved for the use in production at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I want to say that I think, and maybe another agency could disagree, but I think BLS is the first agency, principal federal statistical agency, to do this in an official way. So here is sort of the continuing journey. We're not totally there yet because there's a lot of things we need to do to make sure we're using our properly for production use. So we did set up a governing board, and this board was chartered to develop an infrastructure to implement processes and procedures to use R for production. And so some of the things that we've been working on so far this year is to find out across the Bureau how are the program offices using R for production, because even though we didn't have sort of an official approval to use it for production, people were developing programs and applications that really did fit this definition up here as production software. The board also listed various risks and issues we needed to consider and developed a mitigation strategy for those. And we're also trying to determine how can we sort of find a version of R that would be used for, if somebody's going to develop something for use in production, this would be the version of R that they would have to use, including packages. So ways that we could manage that process with respect to validating, upgrading, and so on. And we are researching various tools to help us with that. My colleague Brandon wrote this for the board, on behalf of the board, wrote this paper on the 10 principles for using R in production at BLS, and it's really very interesting and a nice paper. And I just want to point out some of these that we've been working on, focusing on lately, which is to kind of centralize, if you would, these applications, so get them off of individual computers. The version control I've already talked about. We discussed various style guides that we might use, and of course, the importance of documenting your work. So I'd like to acknowledge the members of the governing board. We have members from all our program offices as well as our IT department. So these aren't my only friends that I've had along the way on this journey. There's another one that I mentioned last year, the Interagency R Users Group. This was a grassroots group that we formed in 2015. We have no official standing or sponsorship, which I personally think is great. We just come together because we want to, share. We have members from many use agencies and also the Department of Defense. And we've just been recently joined by our colleagues in Stat Canada, which is really exciting. And it was through some of my strong supporters on this Interagency R Users Group that we got connected with Joe Reichert at the R Consortium. And he has just been a fantastic friend and colleague, and he's been so patient with me as we kind of forge a way ahead. And it's through his support and others that we've established a group, a new users group, under the sponsorship of the R Consortium called R Govies. And this is our GitHub site. We also have a Meetup account, and we're just getting established. Okay, so we don't have, we're just kind of trying to put it all together here. And just to note that our Govies is open to everybody. We really look for international members, and just anybody who's interested in, R used in either the government or with official statistics or, government data or what have you. The Interagency R users group is still going to continue, and we think that group will be more government folks because this group will maybe wrestle with issues that would only be of interest, say, to somebody who's, like a government employee. So, how do we get through the IT regulations and that type of thing? So we're really trying to solicit ideas for our Govies. We haven't had a meeting yet. Our first one we're going to try to have in January, and hopefully that one will kind of solicit ideas for what we might do in the future. We're hoping that local groups of our Govies can form, local meaning geographically or maybe by areas of interest. And we're thinking about maybe having our Govies sort of sponsor, if you would, our consortium working group. And some of the ideas for that are listed here. So I hope you get involved. Feel free to contact me for information on any of these things, our Govies, the Interagency R users group, or even just our BLS efforts using R.